People didn't have food, water, shelter for a while, and it was chaotic. So if you can plan a little bit ahead, not only the economic collapse that could happen, but a water supply, a filter, an atmospheric water generator, a solar panel to be able to power that, seeds, being able to grow your own food. There's so many things that you can do that don't cost a lot of money, but you can prepare for your family. And I'm not a nutcase in going and living in bunkers and all that. It's just all about just a little preparation for your family, and then live your normal life, but look at the facts and see what the truth really is, and don't rely on the mainstream press to give you that information.
Yeah, because they absolutely won't. In fact, the Americans prepping is something that is becoming absolutely mainstream. In one of Gerald's articles, one of his trends journals from a few years back, I think he was talking about the rise of neo-survivalism is what he was calling it. And Americans basically just preparing themselves. After an event like Katrina, they see what's happening and they say, obviously the government, they can't secure our borders. They can't help in a situation like that. I have to be responsible about my own family. So, that's what's so great about outlivesheep.com. You can go to that website, get your news, get information on preparing. I appreciate you coming on. Tell us real quick, though, about the documentaries and the videos you put together. I know that you could watch those on YouTube. Those are fantastic. You guys did a great job covering the oil spill. Just comment on that real quick.
Yes, no, I make the movies. I made one this last week called The Sky's Falling, and the point behind the movies is that the information of the truth and facts are out there, and what I try to do is try to put all that together in a, I guess, entertaining way, even though it's bad news for like most of the time, but it provides you a different perspective than just watching a news story. If you have multiple news stories covering the same thing and they're from different parts of the country, putting it together in a piece gives you a different perspective. I mean, many people wouldn't know that there's oil spills here, there, everywhere. All these changes are happening so quickly. And by watching some of my videos I put together, it helps you connect the dots to what the truth is.
Oh, well, Brian, I appreciate you coming on the program. Brian Erkey from outlivesheep.com. I really recommend the site. It's fantastic. Brian, will you join us in the future?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me today, Fabian.
All right, great. Have a great day. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
That is Brian from outlivesheep.com. Like I said, it's a great website. It's people might look at this and say, well, it's bad news. It's not. It's actually empowerment, being prepared and knowing what's really happening with the economy, what's really happening with your government. It empowers you to make the right decisions for you and your family and for your future. Quick break, Fabian Calvo program. We'll be back in a second. We're back, Fabian Calvo program. Okay, we have Tim on line one. He wants to make a comment on Kristen O'Donnell. Tim, question or comment, please?
Fabian, how are you? Just first, I want to wish you a happy Constitution Day.
Thank you very much. I was going to definitely get that in my closing remarks. A happy Constitution to you and to everyone that's listening.
The thing I find interesting about Christine O'Donnell is how the media is putting her in the crosshairs. It kind of reminds me of Dan Quayle in '88 and Sarah in 2008. Now, here's the thing I want you to remember. The premiere for Saturday Night Live is just a week from Saturday, on the 25th. And I will wager you dollars to donuts that they are going to have a thing on the Tea Party and probably something on Christine O'Donnell.
There's no question. That is right on the money, Tim.
Yeah,
you're
but
exactly right.
If they do that, that tells you exactly that, yep, she's in the crosshairs, and they're pulling out all the stops going into the final election.
Yeah, oh, no question. Already, MSNBC was labeling her as being a nutbag, being on the fringe, and they've tried this with the Tea Party since really the Tea Party took off. And really, the reality is like I said a little bit earlier, the Tea Party is simply Americans that are sick and tired of an out-of-control government, and they want to restore their country back to some common sense. And she, I think, represents that. The other choice in that race was a establishment Republican that was towing the party line. And quite frankly, I'm sick and tired of that. It sounds like you're sick and tired of that too, Tim.
Oh, that's right. That's right. By the way, did you see the latest approval ratings for Obama came out? He went back down to 41%. It's the lowest it's ever been.
Yeah, I believe
Just came out today.
And those will probably continue to. They'll probably hit a floor.
I find it amazing with this guy because he's going out of his way to shoot his own party in the foot.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to do him. He's a pariah.
Yeah, there is no question. Tim, I appreciate you calling. Thank you so much for your comments.
Have a good one, Fabian. Have a good weekend.
Thank you very much. It's Tim from Palm Harbor. 866-826-1340 is the call-in number if you want to comment on anything we've talked about today. It is Constitution Day, and I wanted to just give you an example of a story that I came across. I had several other things that I wanted to get into here. Wall Street Casino, it's spooking small American investors. That means the middle class. From basically, they've turned Wall Street into a gambling hall. So, of course, the middle class is wary of investing their money and turning it over to some broker that basically is going to gamble it on Wall Street. That makes kind of all the sense in the world. Another survey that came out, Chicago Council on Global Affairs, they've been conducting this survey since 1974, and overwhelmingly Americans, for the first time, 49%. It's by far the highest since the Chicago Council on Global Affairs has been doing their survey. I said 49% want America to basically mind its own business internationally and let other countries get along the best way that they can. And this is another thing for the Tea Party movement. The Tea Party movement is going to have to make a decision at some point, and of course not all of them will agree, and that's just how parties are. Whether it wants to be a party that will be pro these intervention foreign policies where they go and basically attack countries that have never done anything to us, or if they want to have a humble foreign policy like our founders did. On Constitution Day, that's one of the things to look at the men and women behind our founding documents. They wanted a humble foreign policy. They did not, they warned us of entangling in foreign entanglements, and that's what we've been doing. And there is no difference between Obama or George Bush when it comes to this. In fact, Obama has even stepped up the war on his end with the bombing of Pakistan. And like Gerald Celente said at the beginning of the program, that comes back in blowback. There's just no question about it. If someone wipes out your whole entire village, you're going to want to get revenge. There's just no question about it. And here's another interesting story on that I think really kind of goes in line with Constitution Day. The state of Texas is suing the EPA over these just bizarre global warming rules that it's trying to pass. Today, the state of Texas sued the EPA in a federal lawsuit in Washington, D.C. These new regulations that basically are these new regulations, they're using as basically their research, if you will, the studies by the International Panel on Climate Change that was basically completely factually flawed. And also the Al Gore documentary that we know is just filled with myths and lies. And this is what they're using the EPA now. Remember, if they can't pass cap and trade, they'll just use the EPA to pass the same type of regulations. So on Constitution Day, the state of Texas is suing the federal government and saying that you have nowhere in the Constitution are you allowed to come and tell Texans basically how they could run their business or any of that. And basically the rules would result in employers having to lay people off, making the economic situation even worse. And this is why I've said all along, our problems will not be solved in Washington. They're not. When I read you a story that Congress is basically for sale by the corporations that lobby them, it's a $3.5 billion business, if you will. 13,000 lobbyists for 585 members of Congress. So our problems will not be solved in Washington, and our founders never intended for states' problems to be solved in Washington. That's why we have states' rights, the 9th and 10th Amendment, the 17th Amendment, which was changed during the Progressive Era, I believe in 1913, when all of a sudden now the senators would be elected by votes, where before it was the House legislatures in the states that would vote basically for the senator that they wanted. And that way that senator was more influenced by what people in Florida, what the elected representation in Florida wanted for their state. And that's completely changed. our problems can be solved locally. And that's what, one of the things that Gerald brought up, one of the things that I talk about on this show all the time. Not just unplug from the mainstream media, but shop locally. Invest your dollars in local mom and pop stores. That's the way we turn this thing around. I mean, people say, oh, well, we don't make products in America anymore. And then they go to Walmart, and that's where they shop for everything. Or everything that they buy is made in China. Well, how do you think we're ever going to have manufacturing back here? I mean, I know we're the biggest regulators of all. It's how we spend our dollars. It's how we consume. So, look, the Constitution is completely under attack. Politicians that claim to uphold, they swear an oath to uphold the Constitution. They've lied to the American people. That's why we celebrate wins like the one in Delaware, where you have the political elite is just up in arms over this victory. And now they're saying the same thing they said in the primary. She has no chance of winning. Well, the reality is that they've been wrong with so many other things. It's important that the Tea Party movement doesn't allow the mainstream or allow them to hijack what this movement's all about. It's restoring our constitutional republic. This is the Fabian Calvo Show. Thanks for calling. Thanks to the callers. Thanks for listening. I'll be back next Friday at 3 o'clock.
WTAN, Clearwater, Tampa, St. Petersburg. WDCF, Dade City, Zephyr Hill, Dade City.